when I talk to people about where the auto industry is going, there is this sort of almost, a lot of folks assume like, well, Ford and GM and these guys, great companies that they may be, they'll just figure it out. They'll just add the battery, they'll add the drivetrain, and they'll just move forward, and that's it. It's not that different from say that the gas engine and everything else. They're masters at building cars. It's just a different drivetrain. And I commonly have these conversations with folks that are following the Tesla story closely. That might not be as say bought on the whole. Well, Tesla's doing it so differently. They're just they're just a car company. It's just like everybody else. And I think the way you framed sort of the battery equation is going to dictate how the rest of the car should be built around the battery is something that sounds quite I hate to use an Elon Musk word, but profound. He loves to throw that word around a lot, but it does sound very profound because it does very much impact the value proposition you bring forward. And it seems, if I think about Tesla specifically, about their upcoming, say, compact car, which, there's speculation on how much this thing's going to cost, what it's going to look like, so on and so forth. But you pair that with all the price decreases they've done lately, it seems like they are starting to reach a point where they could conceivably, there could be a car that's offered out for the public to purchase that is going to be somewhat affordable. So let's call this compact car somewhere between $20,000 to $30,000, maybe a little bit more. But it's going to offer performance that's significantly better than, say, its gas car equivalent at those price ranges. Not because of anything crazy they're doing, but because the electric drivetrain itself offers so many benefits over a gas or powertrain, whatever you want to call it, that sort of entire system offers so much versus its gas equivalent. And I'm wondering how, it seems like that's not well understood yet by the public, that there could be a $30,000 EV from whoever, it doesn't matter who it is, that it's just going to perform way better than your gas car. From a performance perspective, and it's going to cost way less to run over time. And it's because of every single thing you just described. And I wonder just how much automakers are going to be able to capitalize on that in the next 5 to 10 years, because they're going to have to do so profitably. Otherwise, they're going to be in trouble. Are you seeing signs from legacy automakers that they're really understanding this sort of dynamic that's starting to appear? And do you think they are well positioned to be able to take advantage of the lower end of the market? How do you think about that equation?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind to me is the Bolt, Chevy Bolt. It's already 25 to 32,000. But it's so uninspiring when you drive it. Have you driven it?
No, I've seen it a few times, but I haven't never driven it.
It's small. It's compact, 4 doors, and the price point's already there, and it's selling a little better now. But I think in the past 7 or 8 years, I think it came out in 2016, maybe 15, maybe 17. I think they've only sold a total of maybe a couple 100,000.
I think you're right.
And Tesla sells more Model Ys than that, I think, in a quarter.
That's correct.
Yeah. So why is that? And if you want to get to the root of like, why do people choose to buy a car? It transcends beyond the nameplate. And oftentimes the legacy OEMs relied on long histories. Like some people, their families were always Ford families or GM families. And I drive a GM product, and my last 3 products have been GM products, and my parents own GM products. So why do I buy GM products? I don't know. But do I drive a GM EV? No, I do not. Did I order a Lyriq and a Hummer and a Silverado? Yes, technically for the company, but do I have them? No. So I look at the Bolt as a test case for if an OEM puts a vehicle out in that price range, like everybody's focused on when will Tesla make a vehicle in that price range, not when will someone, because the vehicle exists, I think. But the value you get, if you buy the low end version of that, and the range doesn't match the expectation of what people want. So I think Tesla will enter that market with a much higher value proposition. And every single vehicle will have the hardware for FSD, for full self-driving, which the GM products do not. and they'll have more of the intrinsic EV value and less of a carryover vestigial OEM feel. So instead of getting in and pressing the start button, and having all the same buttons, it'll be a vehicle people want to own. And I think that Tesla will actually hit a home run in that space, and it'll be sold out for years and years and years. And the charging infrastructure and the range will be far superior. And I had one of my engineers do some napkin math, and I know napkin math. So I told him, I said, Antonio, I said, I want you to do the math. I said, take a long range Model 3 with a long range Model Y rear wheel drive, or Model 3, whichever one, with the, no, not the long range, standard range with the LFP batteries. I said, what does that get for a range? And it was like two, I don't know, 20 or something. And I said, I want you to do the math, parametric math. I want you to calculate the rolling resistance if it was smaller. I want you to calculate the aerodynamic performance if it was a little bit narrower and smaller. I want you to then factor in 53 kilowatt hours for the battery, because that was in the white paper. I don't know if you saw that.
Yep.
So I said, do the math as if it has a 53 kilowatt hour battery. And he did the math. And I said, I want you to factor in the efficiency gain of the 48 volt system and this, that, and the other. It was all this Excel sheet. And I'm predicting like a 254.3 somewhere, 254.
We're holding you to the decimal, Corey. You better get
change
this right.
miles of range for 53 kilowatt hours in a compact Tesla of that size. That's just if they do the bare minimum. And I think that's our minimum. So it'll be a minimum of 254 and change miles of range for that compact vehicle. And then you can have a higher end vehicle instead of being 53 that's for like the $25,000 version.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they might have a $35,000 version that gets a 75 kilowatt hour battery. Now you'll have 300 miles of range, so that'll be the standard range. So I think the standard range will be about 34 miles more based on all the efficiencies you gain of the vehicle being smaller and all the improvements, hardware 4 or driveline 4. So I should have brought my math there. I know people are going to be like, come on, Corey. Yeah.
But you mentioned, so you said that's going to be the 25,000. Like, again, so just FYI for everybody that's watching this is all speculation. We have, we're just kind of throwing numbers around. Corey is brilliant at this stuff, but let's make sure that we know that it's speculation. So we're not saying any of this is going to be in stone, but I think I'm curious to see how close we're going to get. But it does sound like, so 254 miles in a compact sort of form factor, and 53 kilowatt hour range or battery size. Is this at $25,000 a car that Tesla can make money on? So are they making money at 25,000?
Yeah. So this is the strength of Munro. We have a team of essentially 100 people, and we do cost analysis of everything. So I have a fully costed bill of material of a Model 3, a Model Y from Texas. So I already know with a tremendous amount of detail what a vehicle should cost. We do should costing, and companies pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for these reports. So if I look at where the cost resides in a vehicle, the largest is powertrain and the motors. So the battery, the energy storage, and then the drive units. So with the hardware, with the 4th gen drive unit, and if you go to LFP batteries and you only need 53 kilowatt hours, we can already calculate the cost savings there. And then you do 1 drive unit instead of 2, and it's rear wheel drive instead of all wheel drive. So that's like a $5,000 savings just going to rear wheel drive and having 1 drive unit instead of having 2 of the current units. And then the battery costs drop by about 35%, which is another roughly $2,500 to $3,500, just the battery cost. This isn't the pack and all the high voltage electronics. If somebody's out there trying to do backwards math, I'm leaving a lot out there. So just those major decisions And then the reduction in cost of because of the size of the vehicle, there's a lot of quick calculations we can do. That's pulling the manufacturing cost down below 25,000 already. Then it's going to take refinement in the manufacturing process with how the vehicle's assembled to get that last 20 or 30% savings. And I think Elon in the investor day said he's going to get like a third of it in like the design of the vehicle, a third of it in the manufacturing, and then a third of it somewhere else. I forgot. But the manufacturing costs, they don't make up a large percentage of the bill of material costs. So if you can pull out manufacturing costs, you don't get as much bang for your buck as reducing the bill of material of like using less batteries or one motor instead of two.
Got it. So it does sound like, just mathematically speaking, just given what you know, and like so somewhere between $25,000 to $30,000 start price for this compact Tesla seems to be a very realistic target for Tesla to hit from a should cost perspective. And I think if there's one thing Tesla has shown it does seem like they are pretty good at getting as close as possible to that should cost because of how they tackle supply chain and raw materials and manufacturing expertise and all that good stuff, and how many fasteners they use and how lean they get with their design. So it does, and so let me ask you this: does that include the hardware for FSD as well in that sort of, when you're thinking about it? Okay.
Yep.
So and they'll be able to turn on. Okay. So it's over. It's what you're telling me. Sorry.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
Well, now don't kid yourself. There's a lot of big players out there that are working tirelessly,
of course,
and innovating at a much faster pace than I think the past decade has indicated. So there are other OEMs that do better in many places than Tesla. So particularly like that Lucid motor we have, the way that the stator is assembled is just mind blowing. The gearbox on that is incredible. The energy density per unit volume, or the power density, sorry, not energy density. The power density per unit volume is out of this world. But is that necessary? No. But if you want a super high performance 1,000 horsepower vehicle and you want to pack 4 of those motors in a vehicle, it actually is kind of necessary from a packaging perspective. So it depends on what your functional objective is. So I'm getting all the way back to that functional objective word. What do you want to do? And how fast do you want to go? And how far do you want to go? Those are the key drivers that start to lay out the monuments of how you want to operate as an OEM.
Yeah. Do you think there's room for multiple mass market manufacturers in this sort of new EV age? Given that scale and sort of maximizing that equation of sort of cost to performance, equation that you have going on there, really focusing on manufacturing expertise. And given that, it's up for debate if a player like Tesla is going to be able to achieve that 20 million vehicles per year by 2030 number. I mean, do you think there is room for what used to be a Toyota, or currently is a Toyota, GM, Honda, Ford sort of multi-million units per year, and the biggest player gets maybe 10% of the market share? Do you think that's still alive and well in this EV age in the next 5 to 10 years, given how Tesla's playing in the field, or do you think that's going away? How do you think about that?
You've watched General Motors since the 50s. I think they had 50% market share in like 1950 or 60. And it slowly slipped all the way down to like 17%. And you've seen Ford be relatively stable. Chrysler, Fiat Chrysler grew. Toyota grew, and they took over a huge swath of the American market. And now you look at China, that's a whole nother monster where it's getting much more difficult for American companies to even play there, or European companies, which, like VW is really the large European player, and Stellantis. So I guess to answer your question is, your question was more about, do you see there being parity? We have multiple OEMs at the 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million cars. Oh yeah. In order to satisfy global demand, you can't have a monopoly. And I think it's actually, it would be illegal You get antitrust lawsuits if there was only one car company in the United States.
Mhm.
Like, you just can't. The monopoly has to be broken up. So competition is good, because if you don't have competition, then what you have is like Russia, where in the Cold War, where there was no development, the cars were garbage because, what was the motivation to innovate,
Yep.
So I guess Tesla's goal of 20 million is ambitious, but I'd rather set a super ambitious goal and miss and still end up as the market share leader of the world, because that wouldn't be so bad.